Morning.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah, technically afternoon.
We are currently in Naburn and we're about to head out on the tidal ooze. We're currently on the non-tidal ooze. Very sad that this will be our last day on the ooze because this whole trip up to Ripon has been lovely. Really good.
Yes. Except for, as you might be able to tell from the fact that we're inside in the dark, the weather's gone to poop.
Yeah. We did think about not going today, but the weather's worse tomorrow and we don't really want to wait 2 days. So, and the tide would be better tomorrow. But...
Slightly, yeah. We are on the first day towards neap tide, so the spring tide has just ended and it is going to turn and start dropping, and it has been dropping for about 24 hours. So, you know, it'll run out a little bit faster. We'll be moving a little quicker when we get to Selby, but not by a lot. And the lock keepers were like, yeah, it'll be perfectly fine, so no worries. We may have a bunch of boats that are going with us because a bunch of boats turned up. However, a lot of boats seem to turn around and go back to York. So,
yeah, so we'll just see.
Yeah. If they go with us, then we're probably going to explicitly try not to get into a race like what happened on the Ribble Link. And I've got my trusty walkie-talkie VHF walkie-talkie to communicate with Selby Bridge and everything when we get down there, which is basically just me saying, we're far too short to hit anything, but I need to let you know that we're coming.
Yeah.
And then into the lock. So
yeah, and the Selby Canal is completely new to us. We've obviously went past the junction on the way up here. But it feels like progress, because as lovely as the Pocklington and the Derwent and the Ouse has been, it's been like a there and back and a there and back. So it'll be nice to be somewhere where we're just passing through and we're not coming back. Yeah.
For some reason, those terminal arms where it's like all the way there. Yay, this is so exciting. Turn around. This is kind of dull. Yeah, so it'll be new territory for a relatively short while. Then we'll get to back to the
Bankdole Junction.
Bankdole, that's the one.
Yeah.
And on to the Aaron Calder or Calder and Hubble, one of those two.
Aaron Calder.
Aaron Calder.
As far as Castlefield.
Yeah, and then that will put us back finally on to Leeds and Liverpool, which I've been looking forward to for a great deal of time. Also, the fact that on top of the excellent poopy weather, there is zero Wi-Fi where we are sitting right now.
So 2 days here without being able to work is in the rain. It's not appealing. So.
Yeah, can't work, can't Netflix
Can't
or Amazon Prime as it is right now, because people introduced me to The Expanse.
I'm being forced to watch The Expanse.
She's learning what hard sci-fi is. Anyway. Yeah, it's going to be a good day. It's going to be a somewhat longish trip, but not too bad. We'll be pushing against the water for the first probably about half an hour to an hour, and then it'll hit high tide up here, go slack. We'll make good progress, then it'll turn, and we'll suddenly be going, hey, we're getting there quicker. And then we'll ride the ebb tide all the way to Selby, where we'll have to do a button hook turn and come back into the lock.
Yeah.
Now, I have seen people do something where they sort of recommend going sideways, drifting down, and then just shoving in, which is a decent idea and can work just fine, but we'll see what we've got when we get there.
So let's go and get our waterproofs on.
Yes. Yeah, definitely going to be a damp day today. Looking forward to that. Right?
Yeah.
Right, that way, eventually.
As you can see, the weather is absolutely miserable, but there's no turning back now. Three narrowboats have gone ahead of us into the lock, and we'll all drop down to the river together. We're tied on at the back, but it's a fairly gentle descent. There's a duck in the lock who seems to be coming along for the ride too. We were going to hang back, but the boat next to us is waiting for the lock keeper to untie their ropes, so we're the third boat out of the lock. There's the weir in the distance behind us. As well as being very wet, it's rather windy on the river today. We had perfect conditions when we came north, and it looks like this trip isn't going to be quite as relaxing. Ideally, the 4 boats travelling today would spread out slightly. There's only room for 2 boats at a time into Selby Lock. Unfortunately, we're all bunched up together behind the first boat, which is travelling very slowly. Currently, we're all pushing against the tide, so the slow pace isn't too much of an issue. Ahead is the 19th century manor house, MORBY Hall. The tide is now slack, which means we're not getting as much flow across the rudder anymore, and that makes steering at a slow speed much harder, especially in this wind. I'm not sure if the boats ahead have less powerful engines or not, but we're struggling to go at such a slow pace now. We're only travelling at tick over, so our ability to steer is very reduced. Our boat's much happier on a river when we can travel a little faster than this. We decide that it will probably be much safer for us if we wait for a straight stretch of river and pass the 2 boats in front. When we did our RYA training before we got our boats, one of the many things we were taught is that it's really important when driving to always be aware of any traffic behind you, so you need to keep looking back. This is especially important on a river when some craft, especially cruisers, travel at a faster speed than they do on canals. You can then signal each other and wave them past, keeping everyone safe. We're not actually sure if the boat in front knows we're here, so I move to the bow where I can call across to them. There's a fair bit of debris in the canal today, mainly tree branches, which we need to avoid. Some of them are really big. Once we find a wider straight section of the river and the boat in front knows our intentions, they move over to the side and Michael brings our boat past. The front boat is great too, and they make room for us to overtake. So much of our plan to hand back. At least now we can travel at a comfortable speed without having to keep dropping our engine down to tick over. The sun has come out for us. This is much more pleasant. This is the river wharf which joins the Ouse here. Shallow craft like kayaks can navigate up there as far as Tadcaster. You can see just how windy it is by all the movement in the trees. We're starting to see some signs of the village of Cawood from the river. Wow, there really is a lot of debris in the river to avoid here. Under the swinging arm of the Cawood Bridge, and a wave to the bridge operators in the tower. Even on a grey day like this, it's still a lovely cruise, and even with the wind it's pretty easy going. The tree trunks aren't too much of a problem either, as long as you spot them with enough time to avoid them. Here's the sign that tells us it's time to radio through to the Selby bridges to tell them we're on our way. We get the message back that there's more than enough air draft for us, so no surprises there. We message the lock to tell them our position, and then we hear another of the 4 boats saying that the last 2 boats are going to hand back to give the lockkeeper time to prepare the lock once we've passed through. As we approach the outskirts of Selby, we pass the old wharves that stretch out from the Rank Hovis mill. And there's the Westmill Foods building ahead, the one with the steel structure propping it up. It's a bit too dark to see on the screen, but there's a huge floating mat of debris heading towards the bridge arch as we approach. This could get interesting. Yep, it wants to join us as we travel through the arch. Luckily, there's just enough room, so we shouldn't get too close. The lock is just on the other side of that apartment block. The apartment block was built on the site of the old Cochrane shipyard, which was here from 1884 to 1992. As we make the turn, we get a little too close to the lock wall and almost tap the side with our nose, but then Michael brings us expertly and safely into the lock. We tie up front and back and wait for the next boat to arrive. The turn isn't too hard, but we're very grateful that the boat behind us gave us plenty of space to do it. And here they are. It's the boat that was behind us originally, the fourth one out of the lock. They must have been struggling with the slow speed too. From our stationary position inside the lock, you can see just how far the water on the river is flowing now.
Oh, we made it.
Yep.
Excellent driving.
Well, yeah, of course. That's without question.
Shitty weather.
Crappy weather.
Actually, for the most part, it wasn't too bad. It was quite windy. And
Were we on the same boat?
I'm trying.
I was getting pelted with rain the entire time.
Not the entire time. The sun came out for about 5 minutes.
Yeah. And for roughly, 3 hours, I'm being pelted sideways by rain in the eyeballs.
And then just as we came into the lock, it was like the worst of the whole trip, which is typical.
Yeah, I start to do the turn. It's like, okay, no problem. Heaven's open. You bastards. Just, why? Why right now? Why do you?
So we started off the third boat out of the lock. We were going to hang back, but the other boat...
Frankly, we couldn't go that slow.
The other boat was, the other boat in the lock was like tied on and couldn't get untied, so we went third. And we were just going to hold that position the whole way. But we couldn't.
Yeah, no. The boat at the front, well, that's good to know. If anybody drives through that puddle, we got water coming in the windows.
Oh, good.
So that's good to know. Anyway, yeah, the boat that was in the lead was an air-cooled, older boat with an air-cooled engine. And it was clearly doing okay, but it was a bit underpowered compared to us.
Well, they were just going at their pace, basically, but their pace was slower than our pace, so our natural pace.
We were all on tick over behind them, trying to
trying to wait till we got to a position where we could sort of pass out and figure out, you know, who's fastest.
And it's not that we mind going that slow, like in terms of we're not in a rush, but it's the boats.
Well, it's the boat, and it's also not wanting to arrive at specifically the bridges or the locks with a bunch of other boats.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to have a whole bunch of people trying to do the button hook maneuver all at the same time.
So it's not just that we were third, it's that we'd have had to, and we were going slow, it's that we'd have had to slow down slower than slow to hang back enough.
Yeah, realistically, with the lock only able to take 2 boats, and there's 4 boats coming down, there should be 2 boats let out, each of which should establish about a mile apart, and then there should be 2 boats let out, say 10 minutes or 15 minutes later.
Yeah, or they should just hang back and take
instead of all 4 going at once, which does work for Naburn lock, but definitely puts
Or
us...
if we just established in the lock, like, who's got the most powerful engine,
Yeah.
and those go first.
Yeah.
Because overtaking wasn't like
Well, you can't get men into an argument about who's got the most powerful engine.
true.
That's not going to work.
The overtaking was fine, but like, I just felt a bit shitty doing it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I didn't want to do it. It was just...
We had no choice.
Yeah, because every time I would slow down to the point where... Because we were pushing against the tide, but the tide was extremely minimal. So really on just above, you know, sort of canal speeds, slightly over tick over, we were still making forward progress. But then we'd catch up to the next boat. And then the problem was that if I slowed down to try and get to the point where I'm not catching up on the next boat, anytime the wind hits me at the right angle, it sort of blanks me and I just start to rotate. It's like I got no steering if I'm not actually moving, so I need to be moving. Well, there's that.
Yeah.
There's that pooch.
He's got 2 legs and 2 wheels.
Yeah.
He came over
He's
there.
out of his wheelchair over there and he's just sitting there being like, hello. And George just barked.
I'm going to take George for a little poop.
Yeah.
And then, how was the turn into the lock?
Oh, it's fine. It's nothing. It's basically you got to do a sort of a 90-degree turn beforehand and then let it drift you along. And the only mistake I made was because I was trying to avoid some debris, I had my nose a little bit too close. So when the nose hit the dead water, where this thing sort of shadows the wind, all of a sudden I started.
The nose stopped moving.
And the river kept moving my back end. So now I'm coming at a funny angle and I tapped the boat ever so slightly.
Yeah, you were like, "There's going to be a bang," and I'm like, "Dink."
Yeah, it was like dunk. It was like a little dunk, and then I just backed it up and pushed it in. So we were fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we got up here, and we were lucky we found a mooring right away.
Yeah, there's a
because
few
otherwise
more.
you got to go through this. There's a couple more on a curve, or you got to go through the swing bridge, which apparently failed halfway open.
Because the other boat that was in the lock with us, we couldn't work out what they were doing because they were just floating around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
And I'm just distracted at the moment because there's a whole bunch of baby geese just sitting in the lock entrance. Just like...
I wonder what happened to that duck that was in the Naburn lock with us.
Oh, I'm sure he's fine.
All right, then.
Yeah, so there we are. We've made it off the River Ooze. We are no longer oozing around. We are Selbying it. So thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, including 2 minimalist maximal velocity if you like our early time lapses. I'm not saying old anymore, just early time lapses. They're coming up, they're slowly packing up, and eventually they'll catch up to us. And click that bell thingy if you want to get notifications.
We're currently
Oh.
both trying to speak at the same time.
Yes, let's just shoot me down. You know, just nosedive straight into the Gulf of Mexico for some reason. I don't know. Anyway, afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to let her do all the talking now.
I was letting you do all the talking. Oh, nobody said anything. Here's your furry.
My fuzzy wuzzy. Ready to go. And I'm in need of a chip shop more than anything else.
Well, let's get on Google and I'll just take geography.
You take it for a walk?
Yeah, just a little one.
All right, well, let's finish this up first before
I
we
am
go
excited
inside.
about chip shop, but I also think there might be a grease problem.
Yeah, well, there's always a grease problem. Okay, so if there's no grease problem, we get chippies. If there is a grease problem, we get Indian. If there isn't Indian, you cook.
Okay.
Okay.